regarding our journey towards a low-carbon future, which we see as an organization something that is very critical for us to do. And really, if one looks at the scale and the structural shifts that are taking place towards a low-carbon powered economy, not only just in South Africa, but globally, how they're gaining pace. This to us confirms the active steps that we are currently taking to ensure that our business is agile and is positioned to continue creating value for all of our stakeholders. Our value opportunity is rapidly transforming in line with the accelerated demand for cleaner and low carbon resources. So in line with our announced commitment to manage risks while capturing opportunities from the transition to a low carbon future, we are making progress in this front across a number of matrices. The board has approved a growth and diversification strategy that allows us to shift our stated intention of providing resources that power a clean world. A key component of the strategy is progress on the establishment of our renewable energy business that will add to the maximization of value of the coal business through decarbonization, while building market position in the emerging opportunities for distributed energy. And through leveraging our mining capabilities, we are exploring how these capabilities can support an expansion into low carbon minerals. We are also developing a comprehensive impact investment approach to ensure that the socio-economic resilience of our host communities during and our post-mining activities is achieved. And this is really going to be done by great partnerships, collaborations with multiple stakeholders, whereby we are looking at how we can repurpose our mining resources, especially areas where we are not mining, areas where we are, in the past we used to rehabilitate, and how we leverage our land in terms of how we create new economies. And we are doing this in partnerships. We are doing it with Anglo American as part of the impact strategy, impact catalyst strategy, with other players, other players like the CSIR. They are part of these projects. And there's a whole host of other projects, which we believe that unless we deal with the future socio-economic challenges of this country going to the future, we will not be able to be a winning country.
We put questions about the new era energy transition and the move to a low-carbon economy.
If we take it back to the broader strategy of the group and the announcements on carbon neutrality, then absolutely we can't get there without investing in renewable energy. And it obviously makes sense to start on our own doorstep. So we have been for quite a while looking at the opportunities to supply our mines with renewable energy sources. And in doing so, we're obviously going to reduce A, our carbon footprint, and B, materially our cost base, our cost of electricity. So that's where we're starting.
Can you give me any idea of the megawattage that you envisage that you will self-generate, and whether it will be wind or solar?
In each case, we're looking at all the options. We're not settled in particular on one option. We're looking at providing the best option for each individual case. But I can give you one example, Mgojo, which is in fairly advanced stages of the concept study. We're looking to build an 84 megawatt solar plant there in order to reduce costs and reduce carbon footprint. And I think the numbers there are quite compelling. We think we can reduce electricity costs by at least 12% in Mgojo, and we can reduce our scope 1 and 2 emissions at the group level by around 15%. So that's just on the one mine.
And does that also involve not using diesel?
Part of our carbon emissions reduction strategy has been to look at all the time trying to reduce even the number of trucks in the pit, especially for the big operations like Grootegeluk. And we have looked at exactly that in our every strategy. we were able to reduce our trucks by about 10% going into the future. And we're doing tests as well, using hydrogen fuel cells going into the future as well to see whether we cannot offset those emissions.
That will be incredible. So it's green hydrogen we're talking about. You will produce it from the solar, and then the excess of that you'll use to drive your vehicles.
I think what we are saying, we are still exploring in terms of how we can look at the whole area of the hydrogen. We may, it's still too early to decide how we would actually get access to that hydrogen, but we will be working with our OEMs in terms of how, because part of that whole green economy is about how your own OEMs are going to come up in terms of the future next generation of technologies or retrofitting the current one. So that's a process that we are looking in terms of exploring how we can actually utilize hydrogen as possibly one of the sources.
I think, Martin, what was exciting to me is when you talked about the future. So that's part of the future. But we need to look at where we are currently. If you look at the capability that we've introduced of in-pit crushing at Grootegeluk, where you really reduce your need to be hauling using trucks, to the plants. That's something that is really commendable. I think that we have done. And as I said, we continue to reduce the number of trucks in that operation.
That's fantastic. Thanks very much for that. You're not going to build any more thermal coal mines. You're not building any new coal mines in the thermal sense. But does that apply to metallurgical coal expansion as well?
You're very right on thermal coal. We've got a lot of thermal coal on the ground, Martin. It's more coal than the runway is, we believe, of the coal going forward. And in terms of hard coking coal, you know that we have a JV with Anglo American at Muramba South, which we are looking at doing a study to understand how viable that program is and what is the outlook of hard coking coal. And we will make a pronouncement going forward. But suffice to say that, we don't see the urgency of stepping off hard coking coal as we see it on thermal coal. And with all projects, we will have to evaluate investments in any project going to the future according to either priorities in the organization.
And do you see met coal having many, many more decades future, even though people are talking about using green hydrogen to create green steel?
Yes, we see a lot of different views on that, Martin. There are those who say that hydrogen will be a reality in 10 years. And we also hear that hydrogen will be a reality in 30 years' time or more. It depends which side you are on, but we're watching that space.
And you're talking about Synergy going global. Where are they looking at global projects?
I think we're starting local, Martin. So in the near future, at least, we're looking at what we can do in the South African environment. We see a lot of opportunity, not just with our own generation that I just talked about, but also with the changing legislative environment, the pressure upwards on tariffs, and also the supply crunches that we're seeing in South Africa. We're seeing a lot of potential opportunity, particularly in the mining sector, to provide renewable solutions.
So that could be wind as well.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, we obviously already, Synergy is already a significant contributor to the grid in terms of its installed capacity. I think Synergy is the fourth largest wind operator in South Africa. So it's a technology that we're familiar with, and it's a technology that we will continue to look to roll out where it makes sense.
And could I just have one sort of overall comment on your big view on this whole energy transition?
It's something that we've been quite involved with, the big view you refer to in terms of transition, the energy transition. And for us, the consideration in the strategy of energy is really within this context of just transition. And I think firstly, you said it yourself in the beginning that we started this journey a while back with the creation of Synergy. And now Synergy is delivering to the grid, and we're seeing how the whole energy sector is unfolding. And today, really, we're making a really firm stance in terms of participating in these developments in the future in the energy sector. And other opportunities that we see that have been spoken about in terms of the whole decarbonization and how we believe we can decarbonize, and it may sound like a contradiction, the coal business, given our location in South Africa. The opportunities, I think, as Roland has mentioned, are both domestic and global. I think domestically, the change in the legislation will really provide more opportunities for us. And we think that we're very well positioned for that. And for the rest of the continent, I think Roland has much more experience in there than I can speak of. But we are looking at a number of locations for approach in the future, looking at both solar and wind. And I think also the method of approach will be one where we'll be following, as we're practicing here, other mining companies or off-takers that we can build relationships with. That's a much more manageable approach to enter new countries in terms of having a direct off-taker. So the scope is still wide. We're taking a rather measured approach towards the development of the business, and particularly in the energy space.
And just finally, I have to turn my lights on and I rely on Eskom burning coal. Will you still look after South Africa's needs as we move to energy transition?
Absolutely, Martin. And we are fortunate really to be associated with the two biggest power stations in the Lephalale. That would be the last two standing. And we have, even though we have, designed that pit to give us any value, we were able to leave out the power station coal, which will be required for the time that we have got a contract with Eskom, and also, beyond 30 years, there will still be coal if it's required. And so, yes, we think that for South Africa, or let me say South Africa's economy, coal is going to remain to be very critical in its energy supply. Or as part of the energy mix, and we will be there to support as much as we are in this business.